Acevedo of Windows Phone Central.
Peter Aurelian. I work for Xbox Live Marketing.
And today we're going to ask him some questions about Windows Phone games, SmartGlass, and Xbox Music. How do you see Windows Phone gaming this year as compared to last year?
I think the team has done a really good job of continuing to try and curate the right games. We have always taken an approach with Xbox games on Windows Phone of curation. It's not for us a numbers game. So the team is also doing a lot of work behind the scenes in the service components. So I think we're continuing to evolve. It's definitely a journey for us. But as the phone itself continues to improve, I think Windows Phone 8 was a good step forward for the Windows Phone platform. Things I can't talk about that are coming with future iterations, I think will help us to even continue to evolve our gaming platform beyond what it is now.
Are we talking far future or relatively close?
I can't give you any real insight there, but you certainly are not going to be an old man when it happens.
No, I hope not. Plan to die next year. All right.
Sorry about that.
I live rough. Do you think that the focus on Xbox games on Windows Phone is picking up a little, or is it kind of dying off a little bit in favor of indie games?
I know that the Windows Phone team is anxious to have all kinds of developers develop games for Windows Phone 8. And I think that because we take a curated approach, and I don't know the numbers to be really honest with you, there are probably a lot more indie games than we have Xbox Live games. But I mean, in all honesty, we're very proud of the live games we have there. We work very diligently with our studio partners to bring those games over, to go through the rigor that we do even on the console to certify those. So I think we stand in a very healthy place in terms of volume relative to our strategy, which is to have good curated experiences there.
Well, you talked about the rigorous certification process. It is a console-style process, as I understand it. And in some cases, this sort of slows down updates for Windows Phone Xbox titles, and it sort of prevents them from having feature parity with the iOS and Android versions, because it's so much more work to push an update through for an Xbox Windows Phone game than it is other smartphone platforms. And that's sort of putting the games at a disadvantage. Do you think that we'll see any improvements in speed and ease in the near future for Xbox certification?
I know that the live team is always looking at ways to try and improve certification, but not at the expense of the right quality. I mean, I actually think what we do to try and ensure that the games play well and have all the live integration that we know our gamers really want to have is the right approach. We're never going to stop trying to make that process, easier, both for us and for our partners. I'm sure we have some games we've released recently that create play scenarios across screens. So some of those things I think are exciting. They differentiate us in ways that I think other games that I've seen don't. And so we like the fact that we're able to enable things like Skulls of the Shogun and the way that works across screens. And the rigor that we put our games through in certification enable that kind of thing.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Skulls of the Shogun. That's a really high-quality title. We all like it a lot. A subject that always comes up when we talk about Skulls of the Shogun is universal app purchases. That's something that customers really want, but is it actually on the horizon for the Xbox and Windows ecosystem?
We're always going to strive to have the best possible commerce solution. Right now, we don't really have any comment as to trying to solidify those things into a single purchase experience. So.
Okay, and let me ask you about a Windows Phone feature that all of us gamers want a lot, and I think some of you guys at Microsoft who don't game, not you, but some of the people who don't game might overlook this. Mm-hmm. And that's on other smartphones, you have two separate volume settings, one for the ringer and one for applications. So that way you can, for instance, play a game and turn the game sound down without turning off your ringer. However, on Windows Phone, there is only one volume control. We don't have separate volume control for games and apps. And I just can't tell you how many calls I've missed because I forgot to turn my ringer back up after playing a game. So, I mean, considering that iOS, BlackBerry, and Android, and even Windows Mobile before Windows Phone, have all had this important feature, is that something that we could see, in the near future for Windows Phone?
To be really honest with you, that would be a feature that the Windows Phone team owns, and I'm not privy to their development calendar. But I will absolutely go back and talk to them about that.
That would be great of you. Well, I'll give you a big hug if it ever comes through.
Oh, I look forward to that hug.
Okay, now, what can you tell us about the advancements in SmartGlass since the feature was first introduced?
Yeah. So what I'll talk to you about is the things that we did have a release earlier this spring that answered things like we had rest states in the product, so that some of the experiences that are passive would actually, they'd go to sleep, and that was something we wanted to fix. So we had an update that fixed some of those kinds of things. We did a little bit of UI refresh and that kind of thing. But mostly, it wasn't a big update that a lot of the users would have seen. We did some infrastructure work. But with Xbox One, SmartGlass is taking on a number of important new components. Xbox One was designed from the ground up with SmartGlass in mind. Evidence of that are the things we were talking about before we started here. On the floor, you see with games like Project Spark, they're actually using touch devices as input to do the terraforming. That's all SmartGlass. You think about platforms that are enabling mirroring scenarios. This is a mirroring scenario that actually goes beyond mirroring. This is actually being able to interact with the game and do game creation and mechanics in a way that we don't see other platforms doing. We're very excited about that. Games like Dead Rising 3 that we were talking about, they have been able to factor in a very elegant way for SmartGlass to make sense in the narrative. And I went in there, and there are 8 or 10 different things you're able to do with SmartGlass that feel organic to the game experience. And that's because they were thinking about it from the beginning. So, and I could go on. There are several more of these kinds of instances. One of the things that comes with the Xbox SmartGlass with Xbox One is a much healthier sort of contextual game help experience. You see this in Rise, where you get to moments in the game where it can be, gets a little challenging, or you get stuck. They have actual video clips that show you how you can kind of progress through the game when you hit those kinds of things. So, from a gamer perspective, SmartGlass is enabling experiences you wouldn't have without. It's giving you the help that we know gamers have always clamored for. And by the way, these are tools that game developers have with SmartGlass that they can go be invented with. And you see how the examples I just gave you were different for each game, because each game is different, but they found a way to use SmartGlass to enhance what they're doing. Even older games like Fable 3 on the floor, you could go out and see they've refactored the game, and in that they've actually added some map functionality with SmartGlass. So it's really exciting for us as a platform to see this adoption. And that's because we have these tools. It was part of the development kit from the beginning. But the app itself, one of the things that I'm super excited about is there's a lot of value in the app even when you're not in the living room. When you can boot the app up on your bus ride or your commute or wherever you're at, and you're able to do some of the things you've always done, which is to explore the catalog. But now when I go into that, we have this really rich destination page around the content. And you can see this on the floor right now. You go in and you can see a Rise details page. And it has everything in Rise relative to my experience there. So I have the details about the title, but I can see all my progress in the game. And if you've been on the floor, you've seen that it's the way that we're looking at achievements isn't just as a badge anymore, but this sort of dial that shows your progression through the game. And we know that gamers like to really track how it is a lot of them are completionists and how they're tracking against their progress. You're able to see, we announced a lot of the game DVR integration that comes with Xbox One. You're able to actually consume those DVR clips in Xbox SmartGlass when you're bilocated from your console. So you're on the go and you want to see what your friend's great moment was, and their show-off moment that they captured in DVR and uploaded. You can do all of that with SmartGlass on the go. Another component of the on-the-go idea is we have this metaphor of pins. Content I like that I pin to my home screen so it's always easily accessible. Yeah. SmartGlass allows me, once I've found that thing, let's imagine you recommend some game or some video or something to me. I'm like, super cool, I'm going to try that out. I can boot up SmartGlass wherever I'm at. I can find that thing, I can pin it to my home screen, and when I get home and I boot up my console, that pin's there. So sometimes you may hear us refer to this as traveling pins. Basically, I can editorialize the consumption experience that I would have on my console on the go someplace else. And so there's all of this value that SmartGlass is going to have for consumers to find the content that's in the Xbox One world, regardless of type, to decide when and where they want to consume it. In addition to, once they finally start playing a game or whatever, the things I described first, which is these games are now really elegantly bringing SmartGlass to the forefront in making the game that much better.
And how easy is it?
Oh, by the way, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Something I'm super excited about. While I'm on the go, imagine I'm in Rise and I see that it's got DLC that's going to be available for it. SmartGlass will give me the opportunity to actually purchase that DLC.
Just directly through your phone?
Yep, that's part of our roadmap.
Cool. Okay, well, if a developer wants to integrate SmartGlass features, how easy is that for them?
One of the things you would need to do is have a console experience. Meaning, like, if you're a game, or if you're one of our studio partners or network partners, we have an SDK and we actually have people whose job it is to work with them to help them understand how to use it if they have in-house development. If they don't, we've actually worked with a whole set of third-party developers to help them understand how to use the SmartGlass SDK so that they can do development for those partners. We have movie experiences on the console today that, one particular studio may not have in-house development resources, but they're able to easily contract a third party, and then we'll work directly with that third party as much as necessary to be sure that they have the tools they need. So it's really rather simple. The SmartGlass integration is your character Nick has a phone, and there are several things that Nick can do. Probably the most bombastic is he can call in airstrikes, and that's awesome, right?
Sure.
But beyond that, he's able to get text messages. So, how authentic does that feel? That I've got this phone and I'm getting a text message from the game that's giving me direction. Like, it blurs the line. And I think I'm a storyteller, and so as a storyteller, that really excites me. Then there's some components of the game where you kind of get missions and things that are only available as you receive it through SmartGlass. So while the game's full and complete without it, there's all of this expansion opportunity because of SmartGlass. And so folks like Capcom, I think they're really internalizing the vision of SmartGlass to smartly use the platform to make their game better. And I think that's good for gamers. That's why I said, even if I didn't work here, when I see game companies doing that kind of thing, I'm genuinely excited.
How about Battlefield 4? It's got a commander mode in which you use a tablet to interact with the game. But
That's right.
Is that actually SmartGlass, or is it a separate type of application?
SmartGlass.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and that I have to say, on the third-party side, when I saw that one was a surprise to me, and when I saw the trailer and I saw the gameplay footage that they had on the deck of the ship, and then transitioning to watercraft, I hadn't seen that before. That game, I'm sounding really fanboy right now, but the different land, air, sea idea that they're pulling off with that title is kind of unprecedented. Like, that will be a title I will personally buy as soon as it's available.
Yeah, I would go so far as to call it the most next-gen looking game that we've seen so far.
Yeah, it did have that look, right? And I was looking at it, and there's smoke blowing across the deck, and there's when the planes are falling, there's sparks that are coming up, as you would expect as they're going off into the sea, and it wasn't clean. Like, it was like when the shooting was happening, it felt gritty to me, and so the authenticity of what that experience might be like, again, it's beginning to blur that line. The different assault rifles he had, and the reaction of those, and when he was shooting those, I just have to say that they've done a world-class job at that time.
What do you consider the main advantage of Xbox Music right now, and how early do you think that it is in its process of where you want it to be? Because you guys had to start fresh with it, going from the Zune platform to this was new, and you came out the gate running in a lot of ways, but presumably you guys do have more things you want to get done. Obviously, you can't reveal that today, but how early in the stage are you guys at where you want to be? And do you think Xbox One and this new platform where Windows 8 is going is going to be able to enable those, your vision of what Xbox Music should be?
So I actually am very, very excited about where we're going with Xbox Music. We launched Xbox Music in the fall, so I guess we're in market 6 months or 7 months now. What I can tell you is that we have an entire team. There was some reorganization internally, and there was a real focus put around all of our entertainment work that we have on the first party side. And we are that team has pivoted into an agile development model. And what that'll mean for consumers is that we will get into an ability to deploy in the same way that a lot of other apps are doing this, updates much more successively. A lot of the development model for the console is rightly on long lead times, just like major platforms like Windows are, right? They do long lead. In the app universe, that those development releases are shorter. We're adopting that. And so one of the things you'll see from us is more quick iteration on what we're doing with our clients. And there's a lot of things I can't tell you, but like genuine enthusiasm on my part for where we're going with the product. And I think as we go throughout this year, as users, you guys are all using the product, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to come back to me and you're going to be super enthused. So yeah, it's early days for us for sure. We're in the product for 7 months. And a lot of our competition have been at this a long time. But I can tell you that there is a significant engineering commitment against Xbox Music, and we are in rapid sort of iteration, and this will be a good year for Xbox Music for our consumers.
And just real quickly in relation to that, let's talk about the issue, and it's a very complicated one, so we'll try to keep the answer brief, I suppose, if possible. When it comes to licensing music in overseas markets, it's always sort of, I know it's a tough situation for you guys, but we only hear from the users that, how come this isn't available? What is Microsoft doing to sort of help that, so that users overseas can get the same access to, say, those in the United States for music licenses, presumably video in the future and this kind of thing too?
The team that works against licenses, one of the things you often find is that the rights holder on a particular property, whether it's music or video, is not the same rights holder overseas.
Right.
And so, if you're following us, what you're, and probably you're not in all these markets all the time to be able to see what's lighting up. We are constantly addressing all of this. What content's available in which market. So, that's a journey too. What I can tell you is that relative to portfolio strength, we feel very good about where we are relative to competition in terms of what our footprint is. We likewise feel very good about that. Will we continue to work on having licenses so there's ubiquity? For sure. We'll keep working on that.
Okay, thank you for your time.